What is your fake it till you make it story? I George Costanza'd my way into a job in high school. I was looking for a new job and went to apply at a local movie theater. The general manager asked to interview me on the spot, which I wasn't at all prepared for, but went with it anyway. This was like a Wednesday or Thursday night. The interview went well, and she told me she was going to be out of town this weekend, but she would let me know on Monday. I didn't want to wait, so the next day at school I got my work permit filled out and took it back. I dropped it off to another manager and told him she told me to bring this crap in. They asked if I could start the next day. I ended up working there for over 3 years. I'm an artist who works in the film industry. Some years ago my wife got pregnant purposefully, and I had to try to find a way to make more reliable income while she was on mat leave and for the foreseeable future, as we knew we weren't only having one. I also wanted to stay in film. I got work as a grunt work lugging things around set and building, setting up large bits of lighting gear. No clue what I was doing. I started off on big shows like The Flash and Arrow. A friend got me work on a small set, and only 13 days into working as a grip, which I didn't tell them, they made me the key grip. Key is film talk for manager. I was in charge of a whole department which is one half of the lighting team. Faked it until I made it. Fast forward over 5 years. I have over 30 credits to my name as a key grip. I own an entire 5-ton truck's worth of gear that I rent out, which makes as much money per show as my wage did. My wife is back at work after having 2 kids, and I'm a stay-at-home dad with consistent passive income and the time to continue to write and audition whenever I need. I'd always been interested in programming. As a kid I tried to teach myself C and Java with mild success. Fast forward to the time I'm 24. I'm working as a piercing apprentice at a tattoo shop making $20 per day a few days per week. I meet a girl, fall for said girl ends up pregnant. A few hours after the pregnancy test I'm applying for jobs on Craigslist and I find a PHP job a few minutes up the road. I've worked with PHP for maybe a few hours in my entire lifetime, but it was a tiny company and the interview wasn't technical. I lied through my teeth the entire time and get hired. After being hired I tried to start learning PHP on the job. The owner of the company created his own PHP framework which was god-awful, so I couldn't figure it out for the life of me. I got fired 2 weeks later. In those 2 weeks on the job I made an honest effort to learn more about web design and development, so I offered my design services to a local web design company for free so that I could learn. Walking home after being fired I called up the web design company and they ended up hiring me. I would learn on the job for a year or so and then take my skills to get more money somewhere else. 10 years later I'm the lead software engineer on a big project making just over 6 figures. If a pregnancy test hadn't scared me to death that day I would still be working dead-end jobs to scrape up enough money for weed and booze. I started at a big ol' multinational in retail as a college dropout. I started at the lowest rung of customer service in a store. Now retail has lots and lots of staff turnover. And a multinational has a ton of rules, or you'd expect them to have. Also, I'm not the dumbest around, never mind the college dropout, that's another story, and well, to be fair, not everyone in retail is super smart. So there was a consistent lack of management, or they didn't care, and all the rules and regulations had gaps in them. So people start asking questions: how do I solve this? What should I do next? Etc. Nobody had an answer to these questions, so I started answering them using common sense or what I'd think should work. Just filling the gaps, which probably made me look a lot smarter than I am. Just faking that I knew what I was doing. So I started climbing the ladders and I am now the Senior Finance and Operations Director for a store with a gross turnover of over €160 million. However, cracks are starting to show. The company got a lot more serious and I'm surrounded by smart people with high degrees where I can't bluff my way through problems and meetings as easily. So, I'm thinking of taking a step back and relaxing a bit more on lower position. I was a lot happier then and had way less stress and way less hours. TLDR, faking works until it doesn't. I dropped out of high school in 10th grade. I hated school with a passion. I did get a GED. I started working retail and found I really liked managing projects and eventually people. I ended up leaving retail for a call center job in a fairly large company. Within 4 years I was running a marketing division. I had no effing clue what marketing was or anything. I'm just good at getting people to trust me and I'm very creative. I got bored there and somehow got myself into another marketing role at an even bigger company. 5 years later I'm the CMO. I still really don't know shit about traditional school-taught marketing. I literally faked it till I made it. I'm very good at what I do. Graduate school, doctoral program. Anyone who has endured this pain understands that the transition from undergraduate to graduate training can be very much intimidating and elicit imposter syndrome. Everyone in my cohort was faking it till making it, but in that process of stress and class and practical and comps and writing and research and teaching and learning, you eventually make it. But it's a bitch getting there. And every day early on feels pretty fake. Just gotta get your mental health right, get your physical health right, get your social support right, make sure to keep your hobbies up, try to research something you're marginally actually interested in, establish good relationships with faculty, your cohort, your pi, etc., trust in your self-efficacy, keep grinding, faking it, and doing the best you can, until you come out the other side all the wiser for it. The competency and confidence will come, but not without the sacrifice of anxiety and time put in. A lot of people think doctoral programs are about intelligence. Sure, to some extent, but not nearly as much as people think. It's really about persistence, determination, commitment, resilience, and grit. The process will test you, and break you. But you will grow, and you can succeed. My first job as a programmer, I didn't know how to write a single line of code. Was about 12 years ago. I wanted to learn programming and I chose a hot new programming language, Ruby. I did a tutorial for Ruby on Rails, remember the one where you create an e-commerce store with a few lines, but I had some problems running it on Windows, so after I figured it out I documented it on some forum. A guy messaged me that writing a guide shows initiative and they are looking for a Ruby guy. I never say no to anything. We Skyped, the guy liked me, and I got the job the next day. Remote. The salary shocked my 19-year-old self. The company was a mess at first. It was a new project. I was pretending to work for the first 3 weeks while in reality I was learning for 12+ hours a day using books and tutorials. Somehow I flew ***ing winged it and stayed with them for 3 years. I actually became proficient with Ruby, Python, and JS along the way. A while ago I decided to stop complaining about environmental destruction, climate change, etc., and ACT. So I started planting trees. Keep in mind I had no training in this, I never even gardened before. I considered myself a brown thumb. I researched how to do it and it seemed pretty easy. But everything died. I'd plant a tree exactly how they said, but it wouldn't survive. I had to baby them so much, just to get them through their first year, and maybe half would make it. But I just kept planting and faking I knew what I was doing. Then I came across stuff by Dr. Elaine Ingham on soil science and it kind of changed everything for me. It made a whole lot of sense. Ecosystems transition from deadland, to weed pit, to grassland, to brushland to forest. As they do, the soil microbiology changes from dead soil to bacterial-dominated soil, to fungal-dominated soil. So the correct way to plant trees is actually to transition the soil to forest soil as fast as possible. Nature takes thousands of years of weeds dying, and then grasses dying and soil life building, to a small woody shrub, which then eventually dies, and now it changes. Now everything changes. Woody material on the ground means fungus can move in. It's game over at this point, and you will transition to a forest now. So the correct way to plant a tree is to speed yourself to this point by dropping wood chips on the ground and letting the soil chemistry change. After a few months, or even better, a year, now plant your trees into the environment they want to live in. Well, that changed everything, and now I go around planting mini starting forests everywhere on my land, in wild places, abandoned lots, etc. I've seen little pockets of life I've planted turn from a few trees to a small thicket. At this point, it's unstoppable and the land heals. It's an incredibly rewarding hobby, but one you must take very seriously. Anytime you plant something, you set in motion wheels of change, so you must know what you are planting. For this reason I stick to local native trees, shrubs, herbs, flowers. Things that exist all around me. That's good for many reasons, the least of which isn't free genetic material seeds to make this hobby 100% free. What is really rewarding though is driving to work and seeing a bird perched on an apple tree that I planted, in a cluster of life with bees buzzing around the apple, haskap and lovage and borage and strawberries and asparagus, clover, fruit tree guild. Looking and seeing apple saplings bursting up through the sweet Sicily. The ecosystem has its foothold in now, and will replicate itself, sequestering carbon and healing the soil long after I'm gone. So I started as someone who considered themselves a brown thumb, and with a little action and knowledge seeking, I now have pockets of life all around my community that are expanding and growing, that I was the catalyst for creating. That's a legacy right there. And that's how we reverse climate change and give our children a world worth living in.